Alright, welcome to Kirin Rise University Premium site. I'm Ed Cruz, and today I think I have one of the best videos I can ever think of. Yeah, man. Basically, Pat. I'm going to need the help of my phone actually, because what I have today is basically everything that you need. What did I write? Everything, okay, this is the actual title. Everything you're fucking up with your punch. And this is kind of difficult because you need to know all this, you need to be aware of all this. But yet at the same time, at the end of the day, when you prepare and actually do, you're looking at basically emptying the mind and clearing thought. But you remember how I always said there's a balance in Wing Chun with everything that you're doing. It's like in the beginning, there's a lot of thought and less do, and then eventually you get to the point where you practice, and that thought becomes part of the do, and then the tide should basically shift from one point to another. Okay, so and when I came up with this particular video too, I think I've covered everything, and I've tried to do it in a sense where I kind of group things together, as opposed to right now I have a full list of 26 checklists. Like it's kind of like a pilot just before he takes off flying, right? They have a checklist: this maintenance check, yada yada yada, everything. This is the same thing when you're doing the punch, when you're practicing. And this not only from the punch, but this main concept, like I always said, punch leads to all other motions. When you're doing this, basically, this transcends to the other motions as well, from 20 single man techniques, silk tao, and so forth. Okay. So with that being said, think of this again. There is a total of 26 that I have down. Maybe I'll amend this later on. Maybe I'll have less. Maybe I'll have more in the future. We'll see. But for now, when you're doing the punch, practice the punch. How many of these things are you aware of? How many of these things are you actually doing and be aware of when you're practicing, okay? All right, everything, all right, let's start first. Everything you're fucking up with your punch. Number one, stance, center of gravity is off. And I know that's too general of a stance. Why do we start off with the center of gravity first and foremost? Because everything stems from the stance. You learned that on day one. And I just kept that in a general broad sense that we kind of seem to forget, especially in the beginning and later on, until we finally get to the point where we appreciate the stance, that your stance has to be constantly worked on to improve the quality of your punch, okay? That's a general broad view. I'm gonna go a little more further into that. So when you're punching, and imagine a person practicing his punch and he's doing his punch. Number two, holding your stance still while punching, right? Misconception, misunderstanding, fake news, that we're thinking basically when we stand, our hands are moving, but the body and the legs are basically still, right? Everything is in motion, everything's moving. If one thing moves, everything moves. If everything stops, everything should stop at the same time. So number two, don't hold it still. People try to hold it still thinking that once I'm vertical, I'm gonna stay vertical. It's like driving, right? You're going straight. It's not like your hands are static. It's moving and adjusting as well, okay? Number three, while punching, losing the tension from the neck, back of the neck to L4, L5, okay? It's common. Your focus is on the punch. You're gonna lose the focus on the actual tension. It's kind of like shifting, right? The butt sticks out, the knees are adjusted like that. Why did that occur? Because of tension. And when you're punching, all of a sudden you have a certain vertical in place. That tension has to be maintained at all freaking times. Okay, number four. Two legs aren't doing the function and keep the body in center and adjusting, dangling. Okay, so lately this is a new phrase that I'm basically using. It's called danglers, right? We think of our center of gravity, we hold it straight, and the legs are basically dangling and then just there being propped in place. But actuality, right? In actuality, think of it this way: from ground up, the job of the legs is not just to be static, it's adjusting myself so the center of gravity is in place from side to side, forward and back, and so forth. So that is its function, that is its job, okay? And more often than not, we kind of just like ignore that. Okay, so with that, I think that pretty much sums up everything with the stance. Obviously there's detail, but I think to the point that you can handle it and you're aware of what you need to do, those are things you should focus on the stance. Let's get to number five. Number five, no target. First and foremost, you're punching, you're shooting. Whether you're throwing, you're aiming a gun or whatever, there has to be a target, okay? So sometimes you see people just blindly punch. What are you punching at? Have a target, okay? It seems so common to say target, but think about it this way. If you're at a field and you're trying to shoot something, right? And then people are all around you, distracting you. You have a kid or whatever, dogs running around. And you have to think this, and this. It's hard to target. So you're looking at this. There's 26 in the checklist. Think about it. How are you going to target when you're thinking of all this at the same time? So something to just be aware of. Okay. Number 6, active hand focus only. Natural. It's a natural process. Everyone always thinks punch. Punch is one side. Remember, it functions off a triangle, right? So basically, you're only thinking this hand, the push hand only. It's gonna happen. It's gonna occur. Even if I tell you right now and then, don't just focus on that one hand. Human beings can only focus on one thing. Okay. Number 7. There's no wind up, both hands and motions. Okay. What that basically means is, you're basically from here, boom, you're just shooting out the punch. From here, pulling back the punch. Every motion, even from a footwork, from the opening motion, has to wind up. It's a more natural motion. It's a smoother motion. It's a less tighter motion, and that's exactly what you want to do. So in general essence, right, when we talk about wind up punch like this, if I go like this, here's my current position for the punch. I wind up, punch. From retracting back, I relax and basically wind up, and I pull back. Right? Don't forget the wind up motion. It's part of it. Okay. Number 8 is a pull hand circling, is a push hand circling, right? Simple rule of thumb: any motion drilling, being thrown at the individual or going straight. For example, I throw a ball, I throw a football, anything, any motion being a bullet being, any motion that's being fired has an arcing motion to it. It just doesn't travel straight like this. So when you're doing the punch, it's just not traveling straight. You have basically, think of it like this way. I'm throwing a football, there's an arc motion for it to spiral and drill. It doesn't just go straight like this. So from here, there's an arcing motion to go up. And there's also, since this is coming back, this arcing motion to come back as well. Okay, something to be aware of, something to think of. Number 9, equal speed of push and pull, right? We've talked about this before, equal speed. If I go, since going back to the thing, if I emphasize too much the active hand, right, that means the pullback hand, right, I can't go 5 miles an hour and I can't pull back 2 miles an hour. You got to have that equal levels as far as going forward and back, okay? Number 10, body stay square. Okay, body stay square, simple rule. We've always said that. You're punching, but yet it's hard for you to keep in place. Why? Because sometimes maybe you're punching, thinking of active hand only. The body stays square, simple rule of thumb. Think of yourself leaning against the back of the wall. Don't lose your shoulder contact to that back of the wall. Hey guys, so basically I'm showing you guys on YouTube the top 10 only. There's actually 26 total things that you need to correct or be aware of when you're doing your punches. If you want to see the remaining amount, you can see it if you join the Kirin Rise Premium site. But hopefully the first 10 will help you out and give you a little idea of what to focus on when dealing with the punch. Anyway, if you haven't done so already, click like, make any comments below, and I'll have another new video for you next week. All right, thanks again, and make sure you find your Gung Fu.